Okay, William Painter here again for Journey Road Ministries. And it's the song and sermon part is for September 10th. And the museum behind me is the Art Deco Museum in Salamanca, which is a lovely place. If you ever get to go there, please go in the museum. Uh, the song I'm going to do is called What Was I Made For, which is a real existential crisis like song from the movie Barbie. And so I'm going to play it and play it poorly, and then we'll move on to something more significant. I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for. What was I made for? Taking a drive, I was an ideal, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not real, just something you pay for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel, but someday I might. Yes, someday I might. When did it end? All the enjoyment. I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he's made for. What was I made for? 'Cause I don't know how to feel, but I wanna try. I don't know how to feel, but someday I might. Yes, someday I might. Think I forgot how to be happy. Something I'm not, but something I can be. Something I wait for. Something I'm made for. Something I'm made for. Okay, you're safe. No guitar. It's Dr. William Painter again for Journey Road Ministries, and I'm going to give the gospel reading for this Sunday, the 10th of September. In the Revised Common Lectionary, this is called Proper 18. It'd be more interesting if they had Improper 18, but there you have it. This comes from Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 20. If another member of the church sins against you, go out and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. And if the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and the tax collector. Truly, I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where two or three are gathered in my name, I am there among them. Thus in the gospel. And this is a very familiar passage, I know, because, well, you hear, where two or three are gathered, and that's the church, right? That's the body of Christ. And he tells us in this passage that he will be present with us when two or three are gathered, although, and I'll come back to that digression in a bit. And this passage falls after a couple of passages that are important. This is where Jesus puts a child among the disciples, and he says, woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Don't make this child stumble. And a child, of course, in this environment, in this context, is weak. Children are, by definition, weak and dependent. And so he's saying, take care of the weakest. And then he goes on and says, the same little section here, if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. And then following that is the parable of the wandering sheep, where a guy goes out and finds, the sheep that wandered off. And then following our passage is the parable of the unmerciful servant, where the master, tells the servant, you owe me money, and I'm going to sell your wife and children and until I get enough money to pay it back. And the guy says, oh, please, please, please forgive me. So the master forgives him, but then he goes out, the servant goes out, and there's another servant that owes him money, and he's mean to him, and the master hears about it and is punishes him. And Jesus says, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. Now, this whole part is about how do we get along. And I think one of the things that we see that are very disturbing, or at least I find it very disturbing, is our inability as a society, as a culture, to try to get along with people that are not like us. Much of the mission of many of our churches, especially the big evangelical mega churches, is really pointing the finger outside and saying, look, there's sinners out there, but inside we're preserved, we're safe, we're saved. But not those out there. And it harkens to the wall. Why do we build the wall? They build walls around them. They demand that walls be built on our borders. They build walls around their churches. I know one young woman who became pregnant. She wasn't married and was going to church, and the church said, you got to stand up and publicly apologize and say you're never going to do this again, or you're going to get kicked out. And her first reaction is, but what about the guy? What's going to happen to him? This is just punishing me. And they didn't care to alter their point of view. So she was excluded. So a lot of Christianity is about exclusion. Beginning in Calvin's Geneva with the burning of Servetus, Servetus disagreed with Calvin on a theological question. And Calvin had him declared a heretic and burned him at the stake. And Protestantism has a long and rich history of burning heretics, being accused of, they were the heretics to begin with, and then they had their own heretics. And we are always, Christianity has a very ugly thread in it of pointing its finger at others and saying, you're not among us, you're not of us, you're not of the elect, you're not of the chosen. And they forget this passage here, that if there's a disagreement, you should sit down and talk to them. And the word listen occurs several times in this passage. He's supposed to, if you're not listened to, if the member refuses to listen to them, if the offender refuses to listen to the church, it's all about listening. And how often are we aware of how our behavior adversely affects others? And are we willing to listen to them when we pass laws that target LGBTQ people and victimize them and create outlandish stories and tortured logic about why we should discriminate against them instead of, and many of these in my state of Iowa are children. And so here we are throwing stumbling blocks in front of children who are struggling who are struggling to find out who they are and what they are and why they are. And if they are non-cis, as they say, new word I learned. If they're not cis, then their challenges are even greater. And we should be listening to them. We should be listening to them speak and their thoughts and their challenges and their worries, and to help them, help the little ones, help the little ones. Jesus was always about helping the little ones. Now, the song I sang, it really strikes at the very heart of that. What was I made for? Well, Jesus tells us what we were made for. We were made to bring the kingdom of heaven here to earth. We were made to help others, to feed the hungry, so on and so forth. And he sets the bar pretty darn high. I mean, it sounds simple, love your neighbor. But then he begins to give all these examples, of forgive and forgive and forgive and keep forgiving. And just when you get to the edge or you can't forgive anymore, keep forgiving. And when I get on Twitter or I get on social media of some kind, I don't see a lot of forgiveness. I see a lot of blame. I see a lot of finger pointing. I see a lot of name calling on I say both sides of the fence. I hate that term because there's many sides and many fences, and we don't need fences. We don't need walls. We need be reaching out and listening to those who reach out to us. So in this, the reason I opened with this Barbie song, besides the fact that I quite like it, is she's asking, what was I made for? I thought I was made for this. But I was just a sort of a two-dimensional figure, and I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to be a person. I don't know. And we could say that to every person that claims to be a Christian and realizes they aren't. And they will, what they would say is, what was I made for? If I wasn't made to point fingers at people, what was I made for? I don't know how to feel in this new environment, because I used to feel resentful and suspicious. And now I'm supposed to feel, well, how am I supposed to feel? And so the existential crisis that Christians refuse to face, I say Christian in a very loose term, nominal Christians refuse to face, is the same existential crisis that Barbie faces. And that is, why am I here? What was I made for? Why am I? And there are no easy answers to that. I had an interesting little anecdote I'll share with you, and two of them actually. One, I was talking to a business colleague of mine, and we had a mutual acquaintance. And this mutual acquaintance was an acquaintance to me, but a friend to her. And I didn't like him. I never liked him. I thought he was a jerk. I thought he was heartless. I thought he was unnecessarily and purposefully cruel. I thought he was selfish and greedy. All the good things. And I asked her point blank. I said, I've never understood why you like not only just work. I understand working with a guy, but why you like this guy? Why you genuinely consider him a friend? And she said, well, you don't know his background. He was 12 years old, the eldest of 4 children, and he came home and his mother had killed herself, committed suicide, and the father had made the decision that he was going to put the kids in foster care. And this man, at the age of 12, said, no, don't do that. We must keep the family together. I'll go to work. I'll support the kids. I'll take care of the family. And at 12 years old, this man did that. And all of a sudden, his appearing to be cruel was simply a thick skin. He had to make tough decisions and stick with them in order to keep, and they did. He kept that family together. So here's me saying, love your neighbor and forgive people, and then, accept this guy because this guy is a jerk. And it turns out that there's a reason for his behavior, and I should have been more magnanimous. The other anecdote I want to share is actually about Barbie, the Barbie movie. I took my 15-year-old son to it, and because I think it's important for young men, old boys, young men, teens, male teens, to understand what it is that women go through, what women face, that they will never face. Ask any successful woman. She had to work twice as hard, take twice the amount of criticism as a man. Taylor Swift's got a wonderful song called "If I Were a Man, I'd Be the Man," And it's a great juxtaposition of what women go through and what men don't have to go through. So I wanted my son to experience this, and to so that he could listen, listen better, right? So he went, and we all went, and when we went in to take our seats, there was a young female couple, two women. I don't know what their relationship was. I didn't ask them what their relationship was, but they had this little girl with them, about 5 or 6 years old, and she was holding a Barbie, And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so like, you know, I couldn't have written this. So and they're sitting right next to us, right? So it's like my wife and my son and me, and then they're next sitting on my wife's side. And by the way, at the very beginning of the movie, my son leaned over to me and he said, "Dad, I think they're going to have an existential crisis." I said, "Yeah, I think you're right. They are going to have one." So after the movie, the little girl was really well behaved. I didn't even hear her, but parents are overly concerned. So we were leaving the movie, and I said, "Well, how'd she like it?" "Oh, she did all right up until about the last 20 minutes." Well, that's a parent concern, right? I mean, they're worried about a good parent, worried about that, how their kids are behaving in public, and they don't want them to disturb others, right? And I said, "Oh, well, I didn't hear her, and it's really wonderful that you brought her this movie at such a young age, and I wished I could have brought my daughter at that age to a movie like this." Um, we need to listen more, and we need to be more forgiving. Uh, and there's a lot of hate out there right now, a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of hate, a lot of fear. It used to be people went to church. The people who went to church were less suspicious of others than the people who didn't go to church. They've done studies and surveys on that. Now, the people who go to church are actually more suspicious of others. So there you go. There's the trend, right? You go to these churches today and you become more suspicious and less tolerant than if you don't go to church. So, than those who don't go to church. So, listen. If you have ears, listen. All right, that's it for me. Thank you very much. Thanks for putting up with me. God bless, and I'll see you in 3 weeks.